For hundreds of years, the Tyche Dominion controlled the stars with unquestioned power. Their massive living warships drifted through space like enormous shadows, blocking out suns and bringing fear to anyone unfortunate enough to see them coming. Nobody remembered exactly how the Tyche first rose to power. Some old stories said they evolved in the crushing pressures of gas giants, making them naturally able to build ships that could withstand incredible forces. Others whispered they came from beyond our galaxy. What everyone knew for sure was that fighting against them was useless. The Tyche followed simple rules when dealing with new worlds. When they discovered a planet with intelligent life, they gave its people just two options: serve or die. 50 massive capital ships would surround a planet, weapons pointed at all major cities. Just the sight was usually enough to make people surrender. The few planets that tried to fight back became warning stories, empty, lifeless rocks where civilizations once thrived. Commander Day stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Conquest, a vessel stretching nearly 20 kilometers from front to back. His gray skin shimmered under the dark purple lights that his species preferred. Around him, officers watched countless screens showing the positions of his fleet's 50 ships, arranged in perfect attack formation. "We have found another system to bring into the Dominion," Day announced to his crew. "The scouts have discovered a planet called Earth." Guru, the tactical officer, pulled up the scout reports on a large screen. "It seems unremarkable, Commander. The inhabitants have basic spaceflight but haven't expanded beyond their home system. The planet has abundant minerals and diverse life forms." "Any military power worth mentioning?" Day asked, already feeling bored. These conquests had become routine during his 300-year military career. "Nothing that could challenge even our smallest support ships," Guru replied with what passed for a Tyche smile, a slight movement of facial tentacles. "They have nuclear weapons, but nothing that could get through our shields." What really caught Day's interest wasn't Earth itself, but where it sat in space. The planet was positioned near a natural hyperspace junction, where space itself grew thinner, making faster-than-light travel more efficient. Controlling these points was key to Tyche's strategy, allowing them to move quickly between their conquered territories. "Prepare the standard surrender message," Day ordered. "We'll give them the usual chance to surrender before we arrive. It makes processing the survivors easier when they've already accepted their fate." As the fleet prepared for the journey to Earth, Day looked through records of previous conquests. The pattern never changed. First came resistance, then a short and hopeless battle, then surrender. The Tyche had mastered the art of breaking a species' will to fight. Their ships were living nightmares, covered in weapons grown from biological material combined with advanced technology. When they fired, it looked like the ships themselves were spitting death across the void of space. "Commander," called the communications officer, "we've picked up strange messages from the Earth system. They seem to be discussing something called the Defiance Protocol." Day dismissed the concern with a casual wave of his upper arm. "Every species creates some kind of last hope defense. None have ever worked. Set course for Earth. Standard attack. Formation when we arrive." As the fleet entered hyperspace, Day went to his private quarters. On his walls hung trophies from 100 conquered worlds, artifacts, weapons, and sometimes preserved specimens of particularly interesting species. Soon he would add something from Earth to his collection. The journey took 3 weeks by Tyche standards. During that time, the fleet intercepted increasingly desperate communications from Earth. The humans, as they called themselves, were arguing about resources, evacuation priorities, and something they kept referring to as Project Defiance. Day found it all boringly familiar. "These humans are no different from all the others," he told his second-in-command Luca. "They face extinction and waste time fighting among themselves." Luca, younger and with less experience, seemed less certain. The intelligence division noticed something unusual about their communications. "The humans have united their military forces almost overnight. Previous species took months to overcome their differences." "It makes no difference," Day replied. "United or divided, they all meet the same end." When the fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, Day ordered the standard scan of the area. Everything looked as expected, a typical star system with 8 planets. The third one covered with life and basic technology. Send the surrender demand, Day commanded. Tell them they have 1 day to respond before we start turning their major cities to ash. The message was sent, but the response wasn't what the Tyche expected. Instead of panic or immediate surrender, there was complete silence. Then, a single ship appeared from behind Earth's moon. Commander, the sensor officer called, sounding confused. There appears to be a single vessel approaching our formation. Day laughed, the sound like rocks grinding together. Show me. The screen in the center of the bridge displayed a sleek vessel, smaller than even the Tyche support ships. It moved with surprising speed, heading straight toward the heart of the Tyche formation. They send one ship? Dai asked in disbelief. Either they are braver than most or much more foolish. Little did Day know that this single human ship would soon change everything the Tyche thought they knew about warfare and about their place among the stars. Back on Earth, panic spread like wildfire. The Tyche ultimatum had been broadcast on every channel, in every language. Their message was simple: surrender or be destroyed. Cities emptied as people fled to the countryside, though everyone knew there was nowhere truly safe from the kind of weapons the alien fleet carried. In an underground facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, the last hope of humanity was taking shape. Project Defiance had begun 5 years earlier, when deep space telescopes first detected the Tyche fleet moving through neighboring systems. World leaders had kept the information secret to prevent global panic, but behind the scenes, they pooled resources and brought together the brightest minds on the planet. We have 18 hours before their deadline expires, said General Minho, addressing the room of exhausted scientists, engineers, and military personnel. His weathered face showed the strain of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. Where do we stand? Dr. Heejin stepped forward, dark circles under her eyes. For 3 years, she had led the team designing the experimental propulsion system. The dimensional phase drive is operational, but completely untested. In normal circumstances, we'd spend another 2 years running simulations before even considering a live test. These aren't normal circumstances, Minho replied grimly. What about weapons? Across the room, weapons specialist Tae Woo looked up from his tablet. The particle cannons are installed and the targeting systems are calibrated, but like everything else on this ship, they've never been fired outside a lab. The ship they spoke of sat in a massive underwater hangar beside their meeting room. The ESS Defiance gleamed under the bright lights, its sleek hull unlike any vessel humans had built before. At just under 1 kilometer long, it was tiny compared to the Tyche warships, but size wasn't its advantage. And the crew? Minho asked. 200 volunteers, replied Commander Jinwoo, who would captain the Defiance when it launched. The best pilots, engineers, and combat specialists Earth has to offer. Each one knows this is likely a one-way mission. Minho nodded, slowly. We always hoped to have more time, more ships. But here we are. The Defiance represented a desperate gamble. For decades, human scientists had theorized about dimensional phasing, the ability to partially shift matter between realities. The technology promised to revolutionize space travel, potentially allowing ships to pass through solid objects or travel vast distances instantly. But the power requirements were enormous, and the risks catastrophic if something went wrong. What are our chances? Minho asked the question everyone was thinking. Dr. Junsu, the quantum physicist who had first proposed the dimensional phasing theory, spoke up. Against 50 Tyche warships? Mathematically speaking, 0. He paused. But mathematics doesn't account for human ingenuity or desperation. As the meeting broke up, people returned to their stations to continue preparations. Commander Jinwoo found himself standing alone with Dr. Hyejin in front of a viewport overlooking the Defiance. Do you think it will work? He asked quietly. Hyejin didn't answer immediately. The phase drive will either work perfectly or tear the ship apart at the atomic level. There's not much middle ground. She turned to look at him. But I'm going on that ship too, so I guess I believe in it enough. Jinwoo hadn't known she'd volunteered for the crew. You're the lead designer. We need you here if we have to build more ships. If the Defiance fails, there won't be time to build more ships, she said simply. Besides, nobody understands the phase drive better than I do. You'll need me when things go wrong. Throughout the facility, similar conversations were taking place. People said goodbye to loved ones via secure video calls, wrote final messages, or simply worked in determined silence. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and the weight was crushing. In the ship's main hangar, technician Do-hyun made final adjustments to the Defiance's outer hull. Each panel contained millions of microscopic phase emitters that would, in theory, allow the ship to partially exist in multiple realities simultaneously. The technology was so advanced that only 3 people on Earth fully understood how it worked. "You almost done down there?" called a voice from above. Do-hyun looked up to see pilot Minji peering down from an access hatch. Despite everything, he smiled. "Just making sure your fancy new ship doesn't fall apart the first time you take it for a spin." "Appreciate that," she replied with forced lightness. "I'd hate to die because of shoddy workmanship before the aliens get a chance to kill me." That dark humor had become common among the Defiance crew. It was either laugh or scream. 12 hours. Before the Tyche deadline, world leaders made a joint announcement. They revealed the existence of the alien fleet and of Project Defiance. The news was met with a mix of terror, disbelief, and desperate hope. Prayer services began in churches, temples, and mosques worldwide. Streets emptied as families huddled together at home watching the skies. 6 hours before the deadline, the Defiance's systems came fully online for the first time. The ship hummed with power as its revolutionary quantum AI core activated, designed to make split-second tactical decisions no human could match. Named Kira, Kinetic Intelligence Reaction Algorithm, it represented another technological leap made under the pressure of extinction. "All systems are green," reported Engineer Sunmi. From the engine room, "Phase drive is stable and ready for activation on your command." Commander Jinwoo sat in the captain's chair on the bridge, surrounded by the best crew humanity could assemble. "Begin launch sequence." The massive underwater doors above the Defiance slowly opened, revealing the dark ocean water above. The ship rose silently, using anti-gravity technology reverse-engineered from a crashed Tyche scout ship found decades earlier and kept secret from the public. As the Defiance broke the ocean's surface under the cover of night, Jinwoo addressed the crew. "We all know what's at stake. Every human being on Earth is counting on us, whether they know it or not. The Tyche have never faced anything like this ship, or anything like us." He paused, looking at the determined faces around him. "They expect us to surrender. They expect us to die. Let's show them how wrong they are." The Defiance rose into the sky, accelerating at speeds no conventional ship could match. Within minutes, it left Earth's atmosphere. The blue planet grew smaller behind them as they set course for the moon, where they would hide until the perfect moment to strike. As Earth disappeared from view, Navigator Yunha whispered what everyone was thinking. "No pressure. We're just saving humanity." The Defiance drifted silently behind Earth's moon, engines cold, systems running on minimal power. From this hidden position, the crew watched as the massive Tyche fleet arranged itself in a perfect attack formation around their home planet. The alien ships were enormous, each one resembling a living creature more than a vessel. Their hulls rippled with strange movements, like muscles contracting under skin. "They're in position," reported Navigator Yuna, her voice barely above, a whisper despite the fact that sound couldn't travel through space. Something about the moment demanded quiet respect. Commander Jinwoo leaned forward in his chair, studying the tactical display. 50 Tyche warships formed a sphere around Earth, their weapons trained on major population centers. It was the standard Tyche subjugation formation, used on countless worlds before. "Their deadline passed 10 minutes ago," said Communications Officer Junho. "They're broadcasting again." The face of a Tyche commander filled the main screen. The alien's gray skin glistened under purple lights, facial tentacles twitching with what the human crew guessed was impatience or irritation. "People of Earth," the alien said, its voice translated by the ship's computer. Your time has elapsed. Your silence is taken as refusal of our generous terms. Planetary bombardment will commence in 30 of your minutes. Any further delay will only prolong your suffering. Jinwoo turned to face his crew. 200 men and women looked back at him, determination etched on their faces. They represented every continent, every major nation, humanity's best and brightest united in this final stand. This is what we trained for, he said simply. We have one advantage: surprise. They don't know what this ship can do. They don't know what we can do. He nodded to Weapons Officer Hyun. Prepare main particle cannons. Target the command ship. Cannons charging, Hyun replied, fingers dancing across his console. 90 seconds to full power. Jinwoo turned to Dr. Hyejin, who sat at the phase drive control station. Are you ready? She nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. Phase drive primed. Remember, once activated, we'll have roughly 20 minutes before the power cells deplete. After that, we're just a normal ship. 20 minutes to change history, Jinwoo said. Let's make them count. The Defiance's engines flared to life, pushing the ship out from behind the moon's protective shadow. Immediately, alerts blared on Taik vessels as they detected the approaching craft. They've spotted us, reported Sensor Officer Minjun. 3 ships are breaking formation to intercept. Jinwoo's voice remained steady. Hold course. Take us straight at their command ship. The 3 tech interceptors grew larger on the view screen. As they approached, weapon ports glowing with deadly energy. They're charging weapons, Hyun announced. Impact in 15 seconds. Jinwoo met Dr. Hyejin's eyes and gave a single nod. Activate phase drive. Hyejin pressed her palm against the activation panel. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then a strange vibration passed through the ship, making everyone's vision blur slightly. The lighting shifted to a deep blue, indicating the phase drive was active. Phase integrity at 98%, reported Engineer Soon-mi from the A engine room. All systems nominal, the Taik ships fired. Brilliant beams of energy lanced toward the Defiance, passing straight through the human vessel as if it were a ghost. The crew watched in amazed silence as the deadly beams continued onward into space, having no effect whatsoever. It worked, breathed Dr. Hyejin, her eyes wide with wonder. We're partially phased into an alternate dimension. The Defiance continued its approach, accelerating toward the heart of the Taik formation. More ships opened fire, with the same result. Their weapons passed harmlessly through the human vessel. Particle cannons at full charge, announced Hyun. Ready to fire. Jinwoo leaned forward. Target their lead ship. Fire when ready. Hyun pressed the firing control. The Defiance shuddered as its main weapons discharged. Unlike conventional weapons, the particle cannons didn't fire visible beams. Instead, they created precisely targeted rifts in space-time, allowing destructive energy from another dimension to pour through its specific coordinates. The effect on the targeted Taik ship was catastrophic. A series of explosions rippled across its hull, as if invisible bombs were detonating inside the massive vessel. The alien ship writhed like a wounded animal, its living components screaming in pain. Direct hit, reported Hyun, his voice tight with controlled excitement. Their shields had no effect. The dimensional energy bypassed their defenses completely. On the Taik command ship, pandemonium erupted. Commander Day watched in disbelief as one of his capital ships broke apart, secondary explosions tearing through its hull. How? He demanded. How did one tiny ship do this? Where did our weapons go? His tactical officer had no answers. Their vessel appears to be flickering, sir. Our sensors can't get a solid lock. It's as if it's only partially here. Impossible, Day snarled. Nothing can exist in multiple states simultaneously. Back on the Defiance, Jinwoo didn't give the Taik time to recover from their shock. Next target, fire when ready. Another Taik ship erupted in explosions as the particle cannons found their mark. Then another. The alien formation began to break, ships moving into defensive positions, something they hadn't needed to do in centuries of conquest. They're trying to surround us, Navigator Yuna warned. 6 ships moving to cut off our escape route. We don't need an escape route, Jinwoo replied calmly. Not while the phase drive is active. Take us straight through them. The crew watched in amazement as the Defiance passed literally through a Taik warship, emerging from the other side unharmed. To the Taik, it must have appeared as if the human vessel simply vanished and reappeared. Phase drive power at 70%, Dr. Hijin reported. 15 minutes remaining. Jinwoo nodded. Make them count. Target their heavy cruisers next. As the battle continued, word spread throughout the Taik fleet. For the first time in living memory, they were losing ships without being able to inflict damage in return. The impossible was happening. A single enemy vessel was systematically destroying their fleet. On the Taik command ship, Day's facial tentacles writhed with rage. All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel. I don't care how many of our own you hit in the process. But the Defiance was already moving to its next target, leaving destruction in its wake. 3 down, reported Hyun with grim satisfaction. Their formation is breaking. Across the Taik fleet, a new emotion took hold, one their species had not experienced in centuries: fear. The battle entered its second hour as the Defiance continued its devastating attack run through the heart of the Taik fleet. What had begun as a desperate last stand was turning into something unprecedented, a human victory against the He, most feared force in the galaxy. Phase drive power at 45%, Dr. Hijin called out, her eyes fixed on the fluctuating energy readings. We've got about 8 minutes of dimensional phasing left before we're vulnerable. Commander Jinwoo nodded, his face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays showing the positions of the remaining Taik ships. 5 alien vessels had already been destroyed, with 3 more heavily damaged. The rest were scrambling to form new defensive patterns, abandoning their bombardment positions around Earth. They're adapting to our attack strategy, warned Weapons Officer Hyun. The Taik are adjusting their formations to create overlapping fields of fire. Even with phasing, we'll have trouble avoiding all their weapons. Jinwoo studied the display. Then we change our approach too. Kira, tactical analysis. The ship's quantum AI responded instantly, its voice calm and precise. Taik vessels demonstrate poor maneuverability when changing direction rapidly. Recommend exploiting this weakness with high-speed approach vectors followed by sudden course changes. Like a boxer throwing feints, murmured Navigator Yunha. Make them commit to a defense, then hit them where they're not looking. Exactly, Jinwoo said. Plot new attack course. Random pattern shifts every 30 seconds. The Defiant suddenly changed direction, its advanced engines allowing it to perform turns that would have torn any conventional ship apart. The Taik responded sluggishly, their massive warships unable to track the human vessel's erratic movements. In the engine room, Engineer Sunmi worked frantically to maintain the phase drive stability. The experimental technology was never designed for such intense combat conditions. Around her, cooling systems hissed, and power conduits glowed dangerously hot. We're pushing the drive beyond safety parameters, she reported through the comm system. The phase field is becoming unstable. As if to emphasize her point, the ship briefly flickered back to normal space. A glancing hit from a Taik energy weapon scorched along the hull, causing alarms to blare throughout the ship. Damage to portside armor, called out Damage Control Officer Jiwoo. Nothing critical, but we can't take many hits like that. Dr. Hijin's fingers flew across her console. Recalibrating phase harmonics. This is what happens when you field test experimental technology in combat, she added with grim humor. The ship phased back fully, becoming ghost-like once more. Jinwoo didn't waste the opportunity. Target their flagship, full power to forward cannons. Hyun complied, and the Defiance's main weapons unleashed their dimensional energy directly at the Taik command ship. The massive alien vessel shuddered as explosions cascaded across its hull, but it remained intact. Its defenses were significantly stronger than those of the other ships. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Commander Day clung to his command chair as the deck heaved beneath him. Around him, control stations exploded and support beams collapsed. The air filled with the acrid smell of burning biological components as parts of the living ship died. How? He demanded of anyone still alive to answer. How is this happening? His tactical officer, face streaked with the greenish blood of their species, looked up from a damaged console. The human ship appears to exist partially outside normal space-time, Commander. Our weapons pass through it, but somehow, its weapons affect us normally. Impossible technology, Day snarled. No species we've encountered has mastered dimensional manipulation. Perhaps that is why we never encountered humans before, the officer suggested quietly. Perhaps they were left alone for a reason. Back, aboard the Defiance, the situation was growing more desperate despite their successes. The phase drive's power cells were depleting faster than expected, and the Tyche were beginning to coordinate their attacks more effectively. Phase drive at 20%, Dr. Hedgen reported, her voice tense. 4 minutes remaining at most. Jin Wu made a quick decision. We need to end this now. Target their remaining heavy cruisers first, then the command ship again. The Defiance accelerated toward a cluster of Tyche warships, weapons firing continuously. 2 more alien vessels erupted in flames, their biological components shrieking in death throes that the human crew could almost feel through the hull. Throughout the Tyche fleet, something extraordinary was happening. The enslaved species that made up much of their support crews were watching the battle with growing hope. On dozens of ships, members of conquered races gathered around view screens, whispering to each other as they witnessed the impossible, the Tyche losing a battle. On one support vessel, a Nuvari engineer named Threll turned to his fellow slaves. The humans fight not just for themselves, but for all of us. If they can defeat the Tyche, he didn't need to finish the thought. Throughout the fleet, similar conversations were taking place as the seeds of rebellion took root. The Defiance completed another attack run, destroying a Tyche cruiser with pinpoint accuracy. The ship's quantum AI was learning with each engagement, identifying weak points in the alien vessel's design and targeting them specifically. The living components of their ships are most vulnerable near their propulsion systems, Kira reported. Targeting these areas increases damage efficiency by 63%. Yun adjusted his targeting parameters accordingly, aiming for their engine clusters now. The effects were immediate and devastating. The next Tyche ship targeted by the Defiance didn't just take damage, it completely lost power, drifting helplessly as its biological systems shut down. That's their weakness, Dr. Hyegen said excitedly. Their ships are partially alive. The dimensional energy is affecting the biological components more severely than the mechanical ones. Commander Jinwoo didn't waste this new information. Broadcast targeting data to Earth Defense Command. If we don't make it, they at least need to know how to hurt these things. As the battle entered its 3rd hour, the once mighty Tyche fleet was in disarray. More than a dozen ships had been destroyed or disabled, and the rest were falling back, attempting to regroup at a safe distance. They're retreating, reported Sensor Officer Minjun, disbelief evident in his voice. I never thought I'd see the day. But the victory came at a cost. The Defiance's phase drive flickered and failed completely, the power cells finally drained. The ship became fully solid again, vulnerable to the Tyche's weapons. Phase drive offline, Dr. Hyegen announced. We're operating on conventional defenses now. A tense silence fell over the bridge. They had bloodied the Tyche severely, but nearly 30 enemy ships remained, still overwhelming odds by any normal calculation. Jinwoo straightened in his chair. We've shown them we can hurt them. Let's show them we're not afraid to die doing. It set course for their command ship, all power to forward shields and weapons. The Defiance turned toward the damaged Tyche flagship, engines flaring defiantly as it prepared for what might be its final attack run. The Defiance streaked toward the Tyche command ship, a silver arrow against the black of space. Without the phase drive's protection, the human vessel was suddenly vulnerable, its conventional shield straining against incoming fire. The bridge shook violently as energy beams slammed into their defenses. Shields at 60% and dropping, Damage Control Officer Jiwoo reported, fighting to keep her balance as another hit rocked the ship. "We can't take much more of this." Commander Jinwoo gripped the arms of his chair, eyes fixed on the massive Tyche flagship growing larger on the view screen. "Stay on course. All power to forward weapons." Across the fleet, the remaining Tyche vessels converged on the Defiance, desperate to destroy the ship that had shattered their aura of invincibility. But something unexpected was happening aboard many of the alien vessels. The enslaved crews, members of a dozen conquered species forced to serve the Tyche, were watching the battle with growing hope. Some had begun to actively sabotage their ships, disabling weapon systems or accidentally miscalibrating targeting computers. On the Tyche command ship, Commander Day paced the ruins of his bridge, stepping over fallen debris and the bodies of dead crew members. "How is one ship doing this?" he demanded, facial tentacles writhing in fury. "They are primitive. They are nothing." His few remaining officers had no answers. The Tyche had conquered hundreds of worlds without facing anything like the Defiance. Their entire military doctrine was built around overwhelming force, not tactical innovation. The Defiance shuddered as another hit broke through the shields, tearing away a section of hull plating. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, preventing catastrophic decompression. "Direct hit on Deck 4, reported Jiwoo. "We've lost the port sensor array, shields down to 30%. In the engine room, Engineer Sunmi worked frantically to redirect power. Her hands moved with practiced precision despite the chaos around her, rerouting energy from non-essential systems to the failing shields. "I'm giving you everything I can," she called over the comm. "But we're running on fumes here." Dr. Hai-Jin looked up from her console, eyes bright with sudden inspiration. "Wait, the phase drive capacitors still have residual energy. Not enough for full phasing, but maybe enough for one more trick, or—" "What are you thinking?" Jinwoo asked. "We can't phase the whole ship," she explained quickly. "But we might be able to phase our weapons. Their shields don't stop dimensional energy. We proved that already." Weapons Officer Hyun turned in his seat. "If we could phase our particle beams, they'd pass right through their shields just like before." Jinwoo didn't hesitate. "Do it." Dr. Hyejin and Hyun worked together, reconfiguring the weapon systems to channel the remaining dimensional energy. Around them, the ship continued to take hits, each impact weakening their defenses further. "Ready," Hyejin announced finally. "But we've only got enough power for one shot." Jinwoo nodded grimly. "Then make it count. Target their command center." The Defiance closed the distance to the Tyche flagship, weaving through increasingly desperate enemy fire. The human ship was damaged, venting atmosphere in several places but still fighting. "In range," Hyun reported. Particle cannons locked on target. Jinwoo took a deep breath. Fire. The Defiance's main weapons discharged, channeling their destructive energy through a momentary dimensional rift. The beams, invisible to normal space, passed effortlessly through the Tyche flagship's shields and struck directly at its command center. The effect was devastating. The heart of the massive alien vessel erupted in a series of explosions, each one triggering cascading failures throughout the ship. The living components of the vessel screamed in death throes that seemed to echo through space itself. On the Defiance's bridge, the crew watched in stunned silence as the Tyche flagship began to break apart, secondary explosions rippling along its length. "Direct hit," Hyun said quietly, almost unable to believe what they'd accomplished. "Their command center is destroyed." Sensor Officer Minjun leaned forward in his seat. "Something's happening to the rest of their fleet. They're retreating." It was true. The remaining Tyche vessels were breaking formation, turning away from Earth and accelerating toward the outer system. Without their command ship and faced with an enemy that had destroyed nearly half their fleet, they were falling back to regroup. "They're running," Navigator Yuna said, voice filled with wonder. "We actually did it." Throughout the Defiance, the realization of what they'd accomplished began to spread. Cheers erupted from every section of the ship, crew members embracing each other as tears of relief and joy flowed freely. Commander Jinwoo allowed himself a small smile before turning to Communications Officer Junho. "Open a channel to Earth Defense Command. Tell them. He paused, the weight of the moment hitting him. Tell them the Tyche are retreating. Earth is safe. The message was relayed, and within minutes, the response came back, not just from Defense Command, but from cities and towns across the planet. Celebrations had erupted worldwide as news of the impossible victory spread. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged triumphant. As the adrenaline of battle faded, the crew of the Defiance took stock of their situation. The ship was heavily damaged, with multiple systems offline and hull breaches on several decks. But they were alive, most of them anyway. 12 crew members had been lost in the battle, their names already being added to the list of heroes who saved Earth. In the days that followed, as the Defiance limped back to Earth for repairs, the full impact of their victory began to unfold across the galaxy. The surviving Tyche ships had fled the solar system, carrying news that would shatter the Dominion's image of invincibility. 2 weeks after the battle, the first alien delegation arrived in Earth orbit. Not Tyche, but representatives of the Nuvari, one of the species the Tyche had enslaved centuries ago. Their message was simple. The news of Earth's stand against the Tyche had spread like wildfire through subjugated worlds. Rebellions were breaking out across the Dominion as enslaved species found new courage in humanity's example. Commander Jinwoo stood before the United Earth Council, still wearing bandages from injuries sustained in the battle. Beside him were Dr. Hyejin, Weapons Officer Hyun, and Navigator Yunha, the senior surviving officers of the Defiance. The Tyche will return, he told the assembled world leaders. Make no mistake about that. They've conquered hundreds of worlds over thousands of years. They won't abandon their empire because of one defeat. But next time, added Dr. Hyejin, they won't find us unprepared. We've proven our technology works, and now we have allies. The council chamber doors opened, and the Nuvari ambassador entered, followed by representatives from 3 other former Tyche slave species. The alien visitors bowed respectfully to the human assembly. For centuries we believed resistance was impossible, the Nuvari ambassador said, her translator converting her musical language to human speech. You have shown us otherwise. The Tyche are not invincible. Together, we can end their tyranny forever. As the humans and their new allies began to plan, repair ships swarmed around the damaged Defiance in orbit above Earth. Already, engineers were designing improvements based on lessons learned in the battle. And in shipyards across the solar system, new vessels were taking shape. Not just one desperate gamble, but a fleet worthy of humanity's newfound place in the galaxy. The age of Earth's isolation was over. The era of human innovation and interspecies cooperation had begun, and somewhere in the depths of space the remaining Tyche ships fled, carrying with them the knowledge that everything had changed because of a single human warship.